Hey everybody, welcome to Fresh Out the Box Talks About Games. I am Johanan, the board game guru and game master extraordinaire.
I am the co-host Casualty CDG, but you can call me Gary. I'm a retired child crimes and human trafficking detective turned tabletop titan and improv comedian.
Everybody, my name is Dr. Jim Davies. I'm a cognitive scientist by day and a game designer by night. I'm a university professor who studies human imagination. I try to model it on computers. Author of several popular science books. One's Riveted. Oh, there's an audio version. Oh, why we're interested in stuff. Next book's Imagination, sort of my bread and butter, all about everything from dreams to imaginary friends and everything else. And book came out this year, Being the Person Your Dog Thinks You Are, The Science of a Better You, about how to be a better person and the science behind that. I'm also the co-host of the Minding the Brain podcast, a monthly podcast about all things about the mind and neuroscience that I co-host with my friend and colleague, Dr. Kim Hellemans, a neuroscientist. But I'm here for the role-playing game I designed.
That's right, we're just here for a game. All of that said, I just wish we were here to talk to you about all of that other stuff. That's dope. I want to follow you on everything, and I'm super interested.
Well, please do.
Yeah, it's like a cognitive scientist, a retired detective, and the best game master in the world have in common. We're all here for Things That Go Squeak in the Night. This is Dr. Jim Davies' new game, and it's being published by Gallant Knight Games, is that right?
That is correct.
And that's a friend of the show, Alan Barr, is kind of operating everything over at Gallant Knight Games, and we love Alan, and we've played a few of his games here. And I'm happy to learn about Things That Go Squeak in the Night. I've never played Mouse Guard, and I think that there are probably some Mouse Guard vibes going on here.
Mouse Guard is, for those of you who don't know, Mouse Guard is a comic book that got turned into a role-playing game that's quite acclaimed, and a gorgeous book, actually, a beautiful product. And I think that it's reasonable to ask what are the differences.
Or
Mouse
what
Guard,
are the similarities, having never played Mouse Guard.
well, you play mice. The biggest similarity is that you play mice. The world is different. So in Mouse Guard, it's very natural world, traveling across the woods, and there's seasons, and but there are no humans, and as far as I know, no magic. And they're only like 3 intelligent species. All the rest are just sort of like animals like we have. The world of mine is much more like The Rescuers meets Ghostbusters. So it's in the modern world. It's a contemporary urban fantasy horror world where the mice are saving children from fairies and demons, getting rides on pigeons across the city, and sneaking into apartment buildings. So the feel is very different from Mouse Guard, which is more of I have a sword and I'm a noble mouse, and these are scrappy people trying to deal with bird wizards and rogue rats and demonic beings in the night.
I already love the idea of flying, across the back of a pigeon over a cityscape in modern New York. That sounds like a lot. I'm in. You've got me.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing that people. It is kind of thrilling, even when I'm just game mastering it, just like bribing a crow with some breadcrumbs and to say, I'll take you the scenic route, and they take you through Chinatown, and it's a visceral fun,
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, I was a big fan of all of those things growing up. The Rescuers, Great Mouse Detective, Five Goes West, Secret of Nim, all those things. And so I've never gotten to play a game like this. I've heard of Mouse Guard, I've heard of all that stuff, and I've had people ask me about them. I just don't know what to tell them because I've never played one.
I do think that this particular setting sort of lends itself to an interesting part of our imagination that we all have this shared now. Is like this kind of Pixar Toy Story sort of thing where it's this modern world, but you're a little hero in a modern world. And so we all have a ton of reference to draw on from all the things that we've been watching for 20 years to make something like this really feel you don't have to dig deep for a lot of inspiration for this, which is cool.
Yeah, Ratatouille and Toy Story, and these give you the feel. And I think it's fun to, like, playing a mouse is just fun. You talk to a raccoon, and it's like talking to a 5-story building. It's gigantic. But the mice are also incredibly elite agents that have a decent chance in the system to take on a raccoon if they have to. So it's very heroic.
No, very cool. So yeah, I like it mentions like rescuer meets supernatural, and you've talked a little bit about protecting children. And I think that's a really cool spin, because that's definitely where this strays from the other games like Mouse Garden and so on.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? About the evil that lurks, that's hunting the children? And
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to. So I'm building a much larger urban fantasy horror world. This game is one aspect of it. I also have some online fiction about it, and I'm developing another game where you play bird wizards in the same world. In the world, only humans and birds can be wizards. So the mice do not have spells they can cast or anything, but you might encounter a red cedar waxwing that's a sorcerer, or a necromantic crow or something like that. The world is a hidden magic world. So what I mean by that is most people don't know that there's magic. So and like many of these worlds, there has to be a reason people haven't figured it out, and I think mine is the best one ever created, if I do say so myself. Made up a part of the world where if an adult human that doesn't believe in magic sees magic or sees a magical creature, it can kill the creature. It can change it into what they think it was, what they think they must have been. So if you see an ogre, like a demon with horns or whatever, the person, oh my goodness, and that demon might die immediately, or it might transform its body so it looks like it's wearing fake horns. So you see a lot of people in the world walking around with rubber masks on, apparently, but it's actually just transformed beings. So the four aspects of supernatural evil, and most magic is evil in this world, they have a very strong incentive to stay away from people who don't believe in magic, and at the same time promote belief in magic, because the more people believe in magic, the safer they are to walk the streets. We've got demons, we've got fairies, we've got necromantic magic, and they've all got their own lore in this world.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I like the birds are the ones that cast magic. I think that's really cool lore.
That's inspired by my studies I've done of religion, right? So I was reading books about patterns across religions as part of my cognitive science work, and they have these patterns, and I don't know if they're super rigorously tested, but there are these ideas that birds are often associated with the supernatural and spirit realms and everything else. And I thought, I just sort of borrowed that, and I said, okay, humans and birds, those are the only ones who can cast spells.
That's fair, yeah, because of like Odin's ravens and everything. A lot of shamanism uses feathers and that kind of thing. Fortune telling with chickens.
The hidden world. Have you seen Hilda at all on Netflix by chance?
No.
It's a little kids show. It is, and it's about a little girl who is in this magical world, and inside the city, basically no magic is allowed, and people don't believe in magic. But outside the walls, there is ancient magic, and there are giants. There are things that the people choose to ignore. And the way the hidden world in Hilda works is that the elves are they're this big. They're tiny, 1 inch tall, invisible creatures. But if an elf signs a contract with you, then you can see magic and you can see the elves. So she befriends a tiny elf, and the elves love contracts and accounts, and so she has to go through this tiny 300-page document and sign that she agrees to see magic, which I think is a very cute, nice, fun, hidden magic world. Yours is beautiful and great, but I thought you might enjoy that.
I'm always fascinated with it, right? Like, I think the World of Darkness did a brilliant job with that. With their each game they came out with had its own reason that it's hidden. Yeah. I'm less impressed with Harry Potter. Like, if you got that much power, save the starving. Come on.
You get on a magic train that no one can see, and that's it. That's the hidden magic. You just walk through a wall. Yeah, I love hidden magic, and I think that there's a part of that for any tabletop role player, and I like to think for most people that we like to live in a world that any day it could be the day that you discover the hidden magic. So that's always something that hooks us fantasy folk.
At the same time, I give big kudos and props to anybody who does a non-hidden magic world, because if you have the imagination to transform society based on the existence of magic as supernatural creatures or whatever, that's a big job. That's like it's as hard as like far future science fiction or whatever it is. You really got to think it through. And so in some ways it's easier to do hidden magic. So I respect the people who don't go that route, like Laurel K. Hamilton, her series, the vampire. Everyone knows they're vampires, and they're not hidden in the world, and got to think it through.
No, it's very true.
Hidden magic with vampires can almost feel like a cop-out. Like, oh, you exist in this world, except that you don't exist in this world. You exist in vampire world.
Yeah.
Underworld, in particular, has that vibe. Where are all these people buying all these leather jackets?
Right? Yeah. That one got me. All right. But yeah, so I'm sure Alan would love us to talk about the Kickstarter that is live currently. Already funded, I believe.
It was funded in 20 hours. I was thrilled. My first
Congratulations.
game got funded in 20 hours. We're hoping now, at the moment of this interview, I don't know when people are watching it, but we are close to hardcover. I would love to see it in hardcover. So that's our first stretch goal.
Yeah. What's the number on the stretch goal? Because you're sitting at 6,952 right now.
Oh, 7,000. So
7,000.
Oh, wow.
it's close. I'm in Ottawa, so it automatically translates it into Canadian dollars, but it doesn't translate the original text, so I have to constantly try to figure out how close I am to the stretch goal.
You are $48 away from the stretch goal for the
Oh my
hardcover.
God!
$48.
I should buy a copy. Just got to sell 2 copies, and we're hardcover, and we still have days left.
You have
It's
6
called
days
Things-
left.
6 days left. I think we're gonna hit it.
I think
Things That Go Squeak in the Night. We keep saying it and the Kickstarter. It's called Things That Go Squeak in the Night if you're here. Go to the Things That Go Squeak in the Night Kickstarter.
Yeah, I have dropped the link in the chat if you are interested. Yeah. So this project looks really cool. I love the artwork. I've been flashing it the whole time we've been talking to people. Very cool artwork.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love the artist. That's Nick Giacondino, who does a lot of Count Night Games arts. He recently did Tiny Cthulhu, and I thought his look was really good for this sort of a pulpy, cartoony thing. And he was quite busy. And Alan was sending me other artists. I was like, I'm not crazy about it. I kind of want Nick. And he said, well, if you want Nick, you can have Nick. You just have to wait a couple months. I'm like, I'm in this for the long game. I want Nick. And so I got him, and he was fabulous to work with. And he does everything in traditional media, too. So, it's hard to change anything. So he sends his pencils, and you approve the pencils. Then he inks, and then you approve the inks because, he can't just delete layers.
Yeah.
We were looking at a tabletop game last night. We were looking at Cypher System, and for the first time ever, Jahan and I reviewed the system. We gave it a score, and so the categories we broke it down to, the things that we're looking for in a game.
Okay.
That's kind of what I would like to ask you about. And we've already talked about the setting, but the other things we were talking about were system, complexity, the options, and then, of course, the visual score. So we're already looking at your art, which we like. But eventually we'll look at layout and things like that whenever there's a full physical copy to look at. What are some of the system things that are going on of how the game actually functions?
Great. I'd love to talk about that. So the game was inspired by my wife, who does not have tolerance for a lot of rules. Even fate was too much. She just doesn't want to be bothered. And we all know people like this. And we were watching The Rescuers Down Under, and I said, "You want to play Mice Saving Children?" She said, "Yeah." And so I really made this game for her. And one of my design goals was that everything you need to play the game is on the character sheet. So here's the character sheet, which I haven't released because it's kind of the whole game. aside from the setting, like the genius. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. But what I'm really proud of, the system is almost all entirely in here.
Yes,
okay?
I know what you mean.
When you're actually playing the game as the game master, as a player, all I have is a sheet in front of me and some notes for my adventure, and that's all you need. So that is a prime. Now that's a little easier because there isn't a spell book. So now that I'm making the next game in the series in the same world that has a full spell system, and you can play humans and birds and I'm realizing that making a game without spells is like 15 times easier than making a game with spells. So and I wanted it to be very heroic. Okay, so this is not a brutal game. some people advertise, oh, the combat is brutal. I was like, no, there's no health track. There is a very high probability of success almost all the time. So this is another way it differentiates from Mouse Guard. It's much simpler than Mouse Guard, which is based on a burning wheel system where you take positions in battles, and it's got that bit of a tactical crunch. This game, I'll just explain the rules because they're very simple. You roll a pool of dice, 6-sided dice. 5s and 6s count as points. You get some number of points with a roll, and then you can pick a perk. And the perks are kind of like Powered by the Apocalypse pick lists. I call them perks. I think just for anyone who's making Powered by the Apocalypse games, you should name these things. I think they should be called perks. That's just my opinion.
And that's almost like I don't know if you played the age system, but that seems sort of like the stunt points that the age system uses, where if you roll a success and you roll doubles, then your third die, you get that many stunt points. And you can do special things with your stunt points, like disarm, or it actually goes into exploration, it goes into vehicle combat. There are stunts for everything. And so the stunts let you enhance sort of what you're doing. So these points in this game...
It's a little like that, except that the very success at all costs a point. So, for example, combat, there's no health track for the mice or for the opponents, right? So the perks are, I suffer no cost, my opponent is defeated, I choose if nearby things are harmed or unharmed, I choose if nobody or everybody hears. So really, you could be battling a raccoon possessed with a spirit, with burning red eyes and can, shoot fire out of its nose. And you could defeat it in one roll. So, if you get 2 perks, you could pick, I suffer no cost and my opponent is defeated, and then that's the end of the battle. And so what I do is, it could be the boss battle of the whole adventure, but I just played it an hour ago with some people, and it works so nice because the thing is that although more tactical games, that's a certain kind of fun that I totally appreciate and I think is real, but it ends up being like trading points, and it actually becomes tedious to describe. Like, well, how do you swing your sword? We've all experienced this, but with this, it's like, but just imagine you say to your players, okay, let's say they only roll one, they only get 1 point. They pick up my opponent is defeated, so they're going to suffer a cost. Okay, so we have 2 mice. One's got a knitting needle, and the other's got a piece of dental floss, and they are fighting a fairy creature with 6 legs that can telekinesis things around at you. You pick my opponent is defeated. How does the scene play out? Describe it like it's a great movie. And they're good at it, It's like, well, one mouse jumps on the back and wraps the dental floss around its neck, and it struggles, and, you don't have to think of, you describe the scene, and if everybody approves, sometimes people will add things about their character, or me as the GM will suggest something, and when we sort of come to an agreement about what the scene is, that's what it is. And so, that's the game and the rules, and, people get different classes get plus 1 die. If you're helping, there's plus dies. So, it's 46, maybe plus a couple dice, and then you those are the rules. So it's a lot simpler than Mouse Guard. It's built for success in the sense that even if you're not a specialist in combat, you're still like 80% likely to win on your first roll. So it encourages huge, ridiculous acts of daring do. That's what I wanted, right? Like, you're mice, so you're the weakest. Aside from insects, you're like the weakest creatures out there. So it's really satisfying to, it's like Anna Kendrick fighting a T-Rex, right? you get up there and you can make in terms of size differences. And so it's meant to be like a thrilling thing where you're not really afraid to try crazy stunts,
Yeah, no, So I'm a hardcore game master for a long time. I play a lot of crunchy systems, and I always used to look down on simpler systems. But lately, these narrative systems are coming up. These Powered by the Apocalypse systems are coming up, and they're very honest about what TTRPGs are at their core, and it's this narrative, collective storytelling device. And I find that players love it when you put the reins in their hand and let them describe what's going on, give them so much agency. And this sounds like it accomplishes that a lot. And I've come to really enjoy these narrative systems a lot. I kind of think I prefer them now. I've kind of come full circle on it, you know.
I'm also the same way. I started with Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, which a lot of people give crap to because it wasn't a true D&D feel. But for me, it was. It was my first game I ever played. And the whole thing was all about, your daily powers, your encounter powers, and all of these small little bits and pieces that you could do to really make kind of a cheesy little loop of circles of what your character could do very well that the game master couldn't stop you from doing. And that was a fun way to start playing, sure. But it's not, this isn't, to me, tabletop games aren't about making an infinite loop to frustrate your game master and win every fight, right? They're about collective group storytelling. And these narrative games, like Jahan said, they do that. And when you let somebody kill a raccoon with one hit, that gives everyone free agency to describe how it happened instead of just like the D&D feel where it's like, I walk up, I attack, I hit, the skeleton's dead, and then we walk to the next room. This way, you can kill this guy in one hit if you want to, but then you still get to enjoy everything else that could have happened or should have happened. Your example of the fairy with all the different things floating through the air and the person not spending a point to protect themselves, immediately I see all of the things falling and crashing on top of that person, giving them, not points of damage, but, making them stunned or however it works throughout the story for the next few scenes. And it's beautiful. And you don't need a rule to write that. All you need is collective imagination.
Yeah, so I have what I have are consequences, and I have a couple suggested ones like bleeding, shook, sprained leg, but there's no mechanical effect. So it's like if you're bleeding and then later you try to sneak across the kitchen floor and you don't choose I suffer no cost, I might say you left bloody footprints.
That's right. It has a narrative.
The cat's going to find them or something. Mm-hmm. But I do, I prefer narrative games too, but I don't want to say what role-playing games should be. I think they can be a lot of things, and I know people who play Dungeons and Dragons and they never act out what their characters are doing between encounters. I mean, and they played for years, and I'm not going to say that that's not a legitimate way to play. I really like 1,000 Flowers Blooming in terms of games, and this game is not for crunchy people, and that's fine, right? Kiki's Delivery Service is the best movie ever made. If you don't like it, that's fine. That's fine. It's not the movie for everybody.
I actually love that movie. Funny enough. It might be my favorite of all of his movies. It's a good one.
That's my favorite. It is my favorite film, period.
I love that movie. That's funny. But yeah, no, so I'm looking at the book right now. It looks great. I love the cover. I love the font. I don't know. I don't normally love font.
Now, there's a story behind that font.
Okay.
That's, oh, God, what's it called? Trajan something. It's very popular with film, so... the West Wing logo, A Few Good Men. Like it was a very popular film font. It's known for looking like a Roman. It's like I'm a calligrapher too. This is one of the many things I do. But it looks like a Roman's, but they're all caps, but they're smaller and bigger caps, and it has a very sort of a stately look to it. And my editor, or no, not my editor, my layout designer, Mike Brodu. He came up with a bunch of, and when I saw that, I was like, "That's fabulous! What is it?" And it's this Trajan something, and I looked it up, and it's got a whole Wikipedia page, and I can see your eyes. You're probably looking it up right now, aren't you?
Yep.
No, I actually really like it.
I wasn't able to. I'm over here searching, but I have like 12 windows open, and so I immediately lose myself in my searches. And
it's Trajan. Just search for Trajan font, and I bet you can find it. But thank you for liking the font. I think it's.
I do like the font. Yeah, I don't know. Funny enough. And yeah, so is this your first time working with Gallant Knight Games?
Yes, Gallant Knight Games. I've been, I went to this. So I went to a conference, a game designers conference called Metatopia, and pitched this game. Mark Diaz Truman from Magpie liked the game, but wasn't for him. Wasn't for Magpie. They specialize in Powered by the Apocalypse, and this is not really, strictly speaking, a PBTA game. But he liked it enough to send emails to a bunch of other game companies saying, "This is a good game. Take a look." And Alan in his initial email, said he was partial to games where you roll 6-sided dice and take successes at 5 or 6. For those of you who don't know, Gallant Knight Games sort of owns the tiny D6 line where you roll 6-sided dice and you need 5s or 6s. But anyway, he read the game and just thought it was beautiful and offered to publish it. So he is great to work with. I love Alan.
Speaking on that tiny D6 line, we're actually doing a superheroes on Thursday night. We're going through superhero games, all the different settings and all the different systems, because we are going to play a superhero game. But there are a lot, and so we're sifting through them. But we actually just asked Alan for Tiny D6 Supers. We asked to take a look at that because, like you said, it's easy to play, it's accessible, it's a D6 system, it's fast. So we would love to take a look at it because
we also asked Magpie for their superhero house system masks. So no
masks, yeah.
You said something earlier about the different abilities, the different. I mean, I don't know if classes is the right word.
Called classes, yeah.
Okay, classes. Can you talk to me about the classes and the options? Because for me, whenever I'm picking up a book in a store, the things I'm looking at are the playable creatures. What races, what skills I have, and then I'm looking at the classes. And if you don't win me on those two things, I might put your book back down. Whereas Jahan's a systems guy. Jahan's looking for your systems. He wants to see how it works and how the wheels turn. And so, tell me about your options, about your character building and sort of what you can do to.
So the species you can be a deer mouse, you can be a house mouse. The only thing you can play is a mouse. So the game is a little restricted in scope, deliberately, but the classes are warrior, diplomat, scout, and shaman.
Okay.
And I'll describe them one by one. So the warrior specializes in combat. They get a +1 die, right? So you roll 4 dice, but you get 1 more to the pool if you're doing combat or stunt. I also have a special move called Frighten, which is a little bit like the generic social move, which is Manipulate, but it's only for like intimidating or frightening something. The Diplomat is the talker, and this is pretty important in this game because you often have to talk animals into helping you or giving you information. Especially if you cross the wilderness, you might have to talk them out of eating you if they don't respect the little red bead that all Mycenaean Council agents wear. And then the diplomat chooses an affinity. So they get +1 for any manipulation or read person roll, 1 die. But they also choose an affinity. Pets, kids, or wildlife. So you pick that ahead of time. Wildlife includes urban wildlife. So a pet dog is a pet, but a raccoon in the city or a pigeon in the city is wildlife. And you get an extra die, yet another die for when you talk to the members of your affinity. So if you are talking to a child who's been traumatized by a happiness eater fairy, and you want them to talk about where the fairy is, even though the fairy warned them not to say anything. Hope I'm not triggering you too much over there.
No, I did. I was like, traumatized child. I like that word choice. No, other than that, I'm okay. I didn't actually have to work a whole lot of cases where the fairies were telling the children not to tell. So,
right. And then talking to the kids, you get 2 extra dice. You'd roll 6 dice, which is pretty good chances. That's the diplomat. And then the scout is more of the sneaking around and social contacts person. So the scout has 2. They get +1 die for the investigate and stealth move. There's only 7 moves that cover anything you'd want to do, and I found over many hours of playtesting that's all I need. Anything anybody ever just wanted to do fits into these 7 categories pretty easily. But then they have a special move called I Might Know Somebody, where if they get successes, they can choose. If they get points, the perks are I know somebody who can help me. And then one you can add on to that somebody owes me a favor. That somebody's easy to get to. So as a game master, right, this would be how the players introduce some narrative, right? So let's say they roll really well and they get 3 successes, right? They know somebody who can help me. It's easy to get to them and they owe them a favor. Okay, I got to come up with who do they know? They know they're really friendly with a rat who's been doing, some social assistance work with some displaced groundhogs that got displaced because a condo replaced a park or something. And so this person's really, this rat, you make it up, right? That's the scout for sneaking around, and then finally the shaman.
I like the scout. That's actually a really cool build.
The scout's really cool.
The shaman is what everybody, when they read the game, I've had 2 people say, well, why would anyone want to play anything other than a shaman? But when you play, it's not like that. Shaman is the somewhat magical aspect. So shamanism in this world, the Quad Arc world, it's called, they don't cast spells. They have 2 magical powers. Magical sight, which allows them to open their mind to the magical world. They can see through illusions. They are resistant to hallucinations. But it also opens their body to the realm of the spiritual. And so if there's a ghost in the spirit realm, they can become vulnerable to that, and the other mice can't even see it. And so one of the perks in that role is I can turn off magic sight before the end of the scene, which you might want to be able to do, right? Because you could be, your shaman could be battling a ghost of a rattlesnake in this fairy world, and the other mice can't do anything about it unless they have.
I love that. That's awesome.
The other thing they have is the familiar. They have a familiar, which is a little bug. This was actually inspired by Mouse Guard, where they can have pets, little like insect pets. But this is a bug. Bug is not a scientific term. It is any creepy crawly aphids, insects, spiders, butterflies, bees, and they can, if they sit and concentrate, they can see through the eyes of the insect and have it go. So this is really good for if you got a crowded room full of adult humans, they're going to freak out if they see mice. You might have your bug go in there and just see where the problem is or something like that. Bugs in this world are not as intelligent as all the other animals. They can nod and Evan Rude from the Rescuers. I don't know if you know this. He's the dragonfly who gets on the back of a leaf and rides them around, and all he can do is. So that's sort of what the bugs are like in this world too. You can ask them yes or no questions, and they can sort of nod. And I encourage the game master to really ham it up with.
They're like Disney animals.
Yeah, they're like Disney animals. Although now that I've made this, I watch Disney movies now, and they're wildly inconsistent.
Fair.
In Pinocchio, we've got Jiminy Cricket, who's a cricket who can talk.
Yeah.
And wears a tiny
clothes.
suit. Yep.
And then we've got humans, and then these fox and a cat that wear clothes and are human size. Like, it's very strange. And then the cat is just a cat. Can't talk. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to any of this. So that's the shaman. Okay, so those are the 4 classes, and there's a rule that every mouse in the game has to be a different class.
Okay.
Fair.
And the other thing that you can do is I have 4 sort of standard magical items that are all really fun. So, at the beginning of the adventure, you get some number of these magic items from the Mycenaean Council headquarters. One of them is an Undead Fly that was enchanted by necromantic crows, and if you invoke your spirit into it, you can tell it to go make a noise, and it can fly somewhere and make a audio hallucination. So it's called a fly knocker. So what you'll often do is you will use it to get the adults away from the room. You make it sound like there's a knock at the door. So the undead fly goes over there and makes a sound of a knock at the door, and the parents leave, and you can talk to the child or something like that. Acorn traps are a little bit like the ghost traps in Ghostbusters. You can open a hollowed out acorn and suck in the spirit and seal it shut. And at the Mycenaean Council headquarters, there are lots of shelves full of rattling acorns that are full of malignant spirits. Anyway, I won't list all the magic items, but that's sort of that's what it's like.
Oh, I really like them though. Yeah, those are really cool.
The necromancer crows, the necromancers. I love it. It's just the visual of the necromancers. I don't know why they're appropriately creepy to be necromancers, but they certainly are.
They are murders.
So we talked about
yes, necromancers in this world. Necromancy is the magic of animated things that aren't alive. So necromantic magic is actually very powerful because it's the magic of all technology. Christine from Stephen King's Christine would be a necromantic evil, right? A rope that will just jump out at you and wrap around your neck. Water that tries to surround your head and drown you. That's all necromantic.
So we talked about the system, which is a D6 system with dice pool. We talked about the setting, obviously, which is this urban fantasy kind of modern and borders on it does have hidden magic. Can we talk about the complexity of the game? How hard would this be if? And well, you did say that your wife is not huge on rules, and so we talked about it being streamlined. If you wanted to break this game out for a group of people at your house, how hard is this to teach a group of people? I guess most people probably have some tabletop experience, but how would you rate this one on complexity?
I'm having trouble thinking of simpler games.
Okay.
Like, so just to give you an example, about 2 hours ago, I played with 3 people I've never met before. Seasoned role-playing gamers, but I've never met them before, and didn't even bother telling them the rules before we started recording. Had their characters made in 3 minutes, explained the rules in a minute, and they picked it up right away. So, and after you've played it once, even if it's years later, I believe just if you glance over the character sheet, it'll all come back.
Yeah.
As far as making adventures go, it is full of random tables for making adventures.
Love random tables.
Yeah.
It gets better. I programmed it into JavaScript, and I have a website that you can go. In fact,
I went there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And if you just keep reloading it, you just get adventures. And I will tell you that the adventure that I just ran them through was pretty much taken verbatim from that piece of software I wrote. And it took an hour to play, and it was fun. And so I really wanted it to be, even board games aren't always pick up and play. Like not everybody's a genius like the man we have in our presence here.
Yeah,
But,
not everybody's Jahan. Whenever we play, that's why I don't buy board games, because I don't want to try to remember 40 fucking sets of rules.
So I think, and I don't have any data on this. I'm a scientist, but I don't have any data on this. But I think people will basically have remembered a handful of games that they play the most. Right? Yeah. And if they want to break out Gloomhaven, they gotta refamiliarize themselves a bit. I wanted this game to be even more pick up and play than most board games. Okay, so I really worked out, and all this world stuff I've been talking about. This is stuff I dig.
Yeah,
I like exploring worlds. I mean, I think Dungeon World is interesting, but I don't like that. Yeah, just start, and whatever the players say, that's how the world gets. I feel it's almost pointless to explore a world that hasn't been made already, because I don't feel like I'm discovering anything that's. I don't know. I want it to be there to be discovered.
That's an interesting take.
You don't have to use my world.
Between game master prep and improv game mastering, there is a fine line. You do need some prep, and your world should have a reason and a purpose and things to go discover. Because you're right, when you're just improving everything and it all comes off the cuff and on a whim, it almost feels like there are no consequences.
Nothing matters. That's how I felt playing. I played Dungeon World at a con, and it was just like, it just didn't feel like anything mattered. And it was just all ephemeral. But I mean, at the same time, I did improv, where it's basically that. Like,
yep,
throw
I
it
get
away
it.
At the end.
I completely agree with you and don't know how to phrase it in another way. We're improv guys. Everything we do doesn't matter. We get it, but we want it to matter, even though it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't.
So
disagree.
I mean, what I want to say is though that like your mice protected kids from demons and fairies and ghosts. That's all you need to know. Like, you don't need to use my world, really. Like, some of the rules have a little bit things to do with some of the nuance of how the world works, but basically, you don't have to. At your table, you do what you like. You could play it, as a generic.
I mean, man, the settings you could do for this, like, my mind is racing. I don't know. So this game does something that I always look for when I'm learning about a system, and like you're doing it too. Just when you're pulling stuff out of pocket, like the ghost of a rattlesnake, or like this and that, like just so much inspiration. Like, I mean, you could have an entirely different setting because your world takes place at a farmhouse, like in The Secret of Nim. That's an entirely different setting than New York, or if your entire thing takes place in a sewer, or maybe in a ghost town that no one lives in anymore.
I was just gonna say, Our point, John, we've always wanted to play a Houston-based game, and having a Houston campaign versus a New York campaign of this
Very
game, just the
different.
setting is very different.
Yeah.
We have nasty swamp creatures here.
Yeah. You'd have to deal with gators, all kinds of different types of spiders, and
Nutria.
And another thing is like, how do the mice get around, right?
Yeah.
So like if Houston's anything like Atlanta, public transit system is lacking.
yes,
So,
very much.
You know, if you're in Ottawa playing a game where I live, like the public transit's pretty good, you can sneak on the bus, use the stunt move or the stealth move, depending on how you try to do it, right?
Yeah,
but if you're in Houston,
New York City, you jump on a subway and you can
you're on a
ride
subway.
around
But
town.
what do you do in Atlanta or Houston, right? Do you try to sneak into a person's car?
I
Do you
think-
have to use a bird.
I think it would
Are
be
you
cool
overheated?
if there was a character that lived in an Uber driver's car and he would just tell people where they were going to be, and then you just that'd be kind of cool.
You
So
just have
one
to
of-
do your
here-
best.
Here's something that you're gonna love. All right, so the mice wear a veil ring. So it's a magical ring enchanted by owls that hides their clothing and their weapons from humans. I got inspired by the veil from Werewolf the Apocalypse, right? So people see mice talking and fighting and wearing clothes. They just see mice doing mice stuff.
Yeah.
But you can invoke the veil ring and talk to people. The mice don't want to do that. Animals want to stay. They don't want humans to know that they're intelligent. But you can do it. And so what you can do is there are the raccoons in the world are the technology collectors, and so sometimes they get active cell phones. So what you could do is you could go to a raccoon, bribe him with some food, dial a number by pressing with your paws, call and warn somebody something. You invoke your veil ring. They don't know they're talking to a mouse.
Yeah.
So in this world, you could be getting called by a bird wizard. You could be getting called by a raccoon ordering food.
My Houston travel method would be waiting at a grocery store and jumping onto a van or a truck or something that takes you from store to store. Because the only way to get around here is on cars
then
and
you
on
could use all
semi-trucks.
you could use all the grocery stores as hubs of transport and the delivery trucks as buses. Yeah, no, but yeah, so the setting lends itself just to a lot of ideas very quickly, and I do enjoy that. The world, I don't know,
It's
I would like to play.
inspirational, right?
Yeah.
The world is inspirational. Your setting inspires and fuels the mind. It really
Oh, that's
does.
nice to hear. Thank you so much. So what else is on your list? You had system, complexity, setting. What else do you have?
We had options, which you talked to me about a lot of the character options, and then which I still think the Ranger is the most exciting. The Scout is still the most
Scout,
exciting
okay.
one for me.
All right.
Yeah, I like the knowing a guy. That is, I have. I'm drawn to that because that's my power in real life. I always like to say that I know a guy. Like I'm a friendly guy and I like people, but I'm really not good at that much. Like I can't paint around the house, and if I try to hang a TV, it will fall and break. And if I try to mow the lawn, I'll have an allergy attack. Like I'm not handy. But I know a guy, and so any character who knows a guy has a special place in my heart. The last thing on our list after options was the visual score, and of course, like
Okay.
John said, he's been kicking through the whole time, looking through these images, and I love the ones that are full color. That's just me. I'm loving the way that the cover looks on it for sure.
Yeah, cool.
The black and white ones have a cool vibe, but I love the full color cover.
I see one where a crow seems to be casting a spell over a rat, and that's a really cool picture.
Yeah, that's a crow necromancer raising undead rats to do his bidding.
That
It's probably
is
not
cool.
for anything good.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the arcane symbols above his head are really dope.
Oh yeah, wasn't that? I loved how we did that. In a game I played at a con, not Squeak, but the other game that I'm still workshopping. One of the characters was a necromantic crow who had a bulldog zombie at his beck and call.
Mm-hmm.
But it's big, right? So, and the crow can fly, and the dog has to walk around. But if it gets seen by a person, could get killed. So it's just kind of fun to. I like it because, like, just the idea of a ghost of a rattlesnake, isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Like, we think
That's
about ghosts, and we think
terrifying.
about vampires, or zombies, and it's like human zombies, right? Human
Yeah.
ghosts. No. All these animals are sentient. So sometimes, a shaman will go in and use magical sight. Okay, I'll use magical sight, trying to look for the fairy that's harassing the kid or whatever. And I'll say, well, there's a ghost of a chipmunk. in the corner, and it's digging at nothing. And in the game I just played, they tried to offer it a nut and in exchange for information, and it was confused, but it gave the information, and it said, "Oh, thank you," and its paws went right through the nut, and then it walked away thinking it had it and tried to bury it in nothing. It's fun having animal versions of all this stuff, you know? And I have animal versions of, like, they're rap stars, right? So there's a pigeon named Rick Spit who gives these rap concerts in the woods, and he just has like a beatboxing seagull, and all the animals come and listen to him. He has to do a whole album because they can't record anything, right? So you go
Should
hear
have
an
a
album.
beatboxing mockingbird.
There you go. Call him
He's got
Mocking
the-
Jay. That's his rapper name.
He's got the most sounds in his repertoire. No, I'm super interested. This seems like a lot of fun. This absolutely seems like a lot of fun, and I think you have something. You should workshop a script for zombie rattlesnakes or ghost rattlesnakes. I feel like sci-fi should buy that script.
Man, I think as an 80s movie, mice creatures that are trying to save children would make just such a good 80s movie.
Thank you. Well, I probably should have done it in the 80s because I did pitch a television show to Disney. Believe it or not, they're not super interested in more mouse properties.
Huh.
Well, you can't say you didn't try.
But it's
But
the
they
House
did
of
like
Mouse.
it. They did like it, and they said, please, well, they also might be doing more with the rescuers or whatever. But they did say, come back with other ideas, so that was promising. But I'd love to have it be an animated television show. Great.
If I could draw, I would draw a mouse Constantine right now. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, yeah. Playing the new game. I keep referring to this game that isn't being released, but Ken Hite play tested it and liked it a lot. And he said at first he was playing a bird wizard. He's like, at first I thought I was going to play a bird that was John Constantine. Then I realized I was playing a bird who thought he was John Constantine. That was a great way to describe it.
That's great.
That is great.
That's one of the great things about going to Metatopia. You might get your gameplay tested by Jonathan or by Kenneth Hite. Just saying.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Metatopia sounds really cool.
Did we mention Metatopia once we started streaming, or was that
Yes.
before when we were?
Yeah,
in
we
the
I did
room?
mention it. So Metatopia is a conference, used to be in person in New Jersey, where a game design conference for board games and role-playing games. So you play the game and then you spend the last 20 minutes giving feedback and brainstorming how to make it better. Can't wait to go back.
No, that sounds like fun. I would love to do that sometime. But yeah, so this game. So congratulations on getting your game funded. I'm glad you like working with Alan over at Gallant Knight. I hope that soon you hit the hardcover. I saw you had a couple other stretch goals that involved like ribbons and a soft cover fiction. Yeah, which sounds really cool.
Yes, so the ribbon's just like a little bookmark, right? And the fiction it's the fiction that is freely available at Altered Reality magazine, which is publishing my serialized fiction about Eve Pixie Drowner and the Mycenaean Council, about a mouse who gets discovered. She kills a pixie at a campground, and a chickadee sees it and reports it to the Mycenaean Council, and they recruit her, so you get introduced to the world through her eyes. I have a full story arc that would be published as a little book, and that's a stretch goal that we might hit.
Well,
That's really
I
cool.
can say, congratulations. You've already hit your goal. Your game is going to be made. This is no longer a will I get my game made. Your game's going to be made. That's got to be a cool feeling.
It's great to see hundreds of people willing to, pay, pledge money up front without having flipped through it or anything to give it a chance. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, I love Kickstarter.
And-
Kickstarter is such a great place for indie devs to get stuff made.
So right now, your top stretch goal is 12,000, and that's for the printed fiction. I just a lot of times people will hit their goals and have to come up with new stretch goals. Do you have anything in the back of your mind, like if you wake up tomorrow at 20,000 and you're 8,000 over your top stretch goal, what are you gonna do? You got anything on the back burner that you might be able to bring the people?
Alan's. I talked to Alan about that. I said, well, I could make like a bestiary and book of adventures, and he said, this game does all right. Let's have another Kickstarter in the future. He says that shops like to see an active line.
Yeah.
Right? So as a book and something else comes out with it, they're more likely to put the original book out,
Yeah.
So I got big dreams, as you might imagine, trying to pitch to Disney.
Hey, tell us about your big dreams. We've talked about your game. We've got 10 minutes. Tell us about your big dreams.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I want to be George Lucas, right? So I want to have like a transmedia franchise that I'm in charge of world building and the feel and the theme, where we have, this game is about the Mycenaean Council, which are the mice that are doing a very specific job. But we've got other organizations like the Birds in Blue or the Blue Jay Police Force. We've got the oversight, the Oversight Parliament, which are wizard owls that fight like really big problems in the world, more like cosmic horror kinds of things. We have like human wizards. We have ragtag animals trying to do things. I have a really great cult system made where I've done a lot of thinking about not real cults. I know a lot about real cults too, but I'm talking about like supernatural cults. I think a lot of games don't do a good enough job in justifying why someone would want to be in a cult.
Fair.
In Cthulhu, in Lovecraft, they just get basically possessed by dreams, which is fine, but it's a little one note. I like the idea that you're in love with another cultist, or you owe somebody something, or you're being blackmailed, or maybe you are magically compelled. But the cults are primarily there to help monsters sort of level up. So I designed my monsters to have different transformations that they go through, and these require sacrifices and rituals and culty activity, right? So they recruit people, they give them benefits, tangible benefits, right? My boyfriend is beating me every night. A fairy comes along and says, you work at a hospital, get me some blood, I'll take care of your boyfriend. Stuff like that. I think that it's a world that can have different kinds of stories in it. I was really inspired by the Clone Wars TV show because it took Star Wars and it was like, let's do a horror show. Let's do a political intrigue show. Yeah. Let's do espionage. Let's do war, right? I mean, I like Star Trek, but come on. It's always some damn ship with one crew. Like, what about an underworld Star Trek? What about like Alien? I don't know. It's just like
fair.
Star Wars you can have all kinds of stories, and I kind of like that. You can have cute little mice who are beating up on fairies after you cover them with scratch dust. To make them solidified. Or you can have, really dark, almost like Cult Divinity Lost kind of, bodily horror and weird things going on. And I want it in novels and television and movies and video games and role-playing games.
And so this game, Things That Go Squeak in the Night, right? This is basically step one to that greater vision and that greater universe.
If you don't count the fiction I've already published, it's step one. Yeah.
Okay. Right. This is the first.
So I've got some fiction, and this is, but they were all made in tandem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still at step one in the grand scheme of things. I would love.
Yeah, I guess this is the first game. That was my misspeak.
First game. That's right.
That's awesome. The universe sounds awesome. The world sounds awesome. And I'm drawn to, I'm the guy when everyone's playing Mouse Guard. I haven't played, right? When I hear about it, I'm like, can I play like a full-size bear, though? Like, I know the rest of you are mice. Is there any plan? I know that you've got the mice, you've got the blue jays, you've got the birds with magic, humans with magic. Do you have any plan to bring in other creatures and other wildlife throughout the series? And do they have a role in this?
So in the world, other animals have a huge role. In this game, you only play mice. The next game, you can play whatever you want. You can, and so the next game, I have a lot of rules. I think I cracked the scale problem that I think a lot of games do badly or don't do at all. In that, I needed a game where you could have mosquitoes and bears and everything in between. And how do you make it work without having thousands of health points, whatever, and tons of math? So in the next game, you can play whatever animal you want. So this game though it is focused. It might be a little too focused for you. You might play this game 6 times and be like, that's enough. But for $25, it's a good deal.
Yeah,
still.
6 times is great for
And especially because tabletop games, I remind everybody, it's a group effort. And so you don't need to buy the group for every single person at the table. You just need to pitch in and buy one book. So $25 split by 4 people to play 6 times is a whole lot of value.
Yeah. So I think that there is, but I do believe your point that there's a real trade-off between the flexibility and the complexity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or they cut. They're not. It's not a trade-off. They go together, right? So, if I had bears in here, I think I would need. I think I would need a little more crunch.
Yes, I agree.
So-
I think you
so
would
I-
need
so it's a
bare
focus-
rules.
Yeah, that would dilute the simplicity of the game a bit. So
Yeah.
it's a focused game on a particular. It's a mission-based, saving kids kind of game, and
I love it because you are
shines.
particularly you're the mouse organization, right? So this is really, for me, this is the intro to this narrative. So I would play this and love this because it's opening the door to the next thing, to the more animals, to the more options, to the more magic. And so this is basically you're playing part one, and you just get to see this expand and develop in the future and become more and more. So
I'm
I
glad
think
you feel
this
that way.
Yeah, I think this is great. And just because I already want the next step, that I feel like I feel like I need to eat my appetizer so I can get to my main course.
If I could talk about one more thing I'm proud of about this game.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So a lot of games that have lore, not all do. They have lore sections, and they have like maybe a sample adventure, right? What I did was, which I think I'm really proud of, is there's a little lore, and then there's an adventure that uses that lore. A very simple adventure. And I say, okay, like this is keep adventures like this until you feel they're ready for more. You're itching, maybe it's just starting to, feel a little samey. Then you give them this new lore that introduces like the fairy realm, how you get there, what the rules are, whatever. And then you have an adventure that uses that lore. And I do this like 4 times. So the lore and the sample adventures are increasing in complexity in the book.
Yeah.
And so, if you're playing with 7-year-olds, probably don't even need to go past the first level until they're older. But, for experienced gamers, you might do these 4 adventures on 4 different sessions, right? Because they, they're there for it. So but like when you have a lot of lore, like I read Demon. Good Lord. The White Wolf Demon game.
Yeah.
Talk about a lore overload. Like
Man.
you can't play, and it's not lore that anyone already knows. Like at least people know what a vampire is. But these demons are nothing like anybody's ever fantasized about being. I don't want to beat up on it. It's got some great ideas, but it's sort of like you got to swallow and understand this really big lore before you can even play anything.
Yeah.
So I wanted this to be a little and I think I managed to make a gentle introduction with this interspersed lore and adventure.
Yeah, no, I do. I like the incremental increase because we play a lot of games, and I often have to slow roll out some of the more complex rules. Like I'll be like, okay, this game I'm going to introduce this part now that we're all comfortable, and so I like that you just kind of do that. It's smart. It's good game design.
I was going to say the same thing. To Jahan's point, when we were playing Cyberpunk Red, like we were all new to Cyberpunk, and when it came to the vehicle session, we had car chases and helicopter chases, and we got used to how the vehicles operate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, then we have the heist section where we're all doing all the intrigue stuff and the hacking. So, yeah, the slow rollout of rules, which you've built in, is beautiful. And it's exactly how we like to approach things. It's how we've been doing it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's a great way to introduce people to the game and the system. And especially with your next game, your next system that might have more complicated rules, to keep that in mind is, you've played the first one. So the first adventure should be easy for you to keep up. Here's the second one with a few new things. Love that. That's great design.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
So yeah, Things That Go Squeak in the Night, live now on Kickstarter. There's plans for it being an ongoing line, keeping it on those shelves, which is great. I love that you're making fiction. I love that you're trying to be the next George Lucas. I think that's a fantastic goal. I also, have goals that are pretty high. So it's cool.
Well, what I always say is,
someone
else. Shoot for the stars and hit the moon.
Yeah.
Don't shoot for New York City and hit Albany. That's
that's good. I like that. Yeah, no, shoot for the stars. Yeah, don't end up in Albany. That's for sure. Moral of the story.
Don't worry, we don't have any fans in Albany, anyways.
I'm kind of from Albany, like that. I'm from the area, so
Okay, so you can trash Albany then. We could just for future reference, you could trash whatever city you want on here. We don't need those fans. If it makes you feel better, we'll deal with the fallout.
But yeah, so it's really cool. It was great meeting you. It was great talking to you. Is there anything else that you would like? Oh yeah. So the last thing that we usually ask in these interviews is what game or games are you that are coming out in the future are you personally looking forward to?
And that's board games or tabletops
Anything.
or video games or anything in your life.
So a board game I'm really excited about. Part of the reason I'm excited is because I actually play tested it a few years ago at Metatopia and got to give some feedback, and now it's getting made into games. It's called The Spill, and it is a Kickstarter's over, but it's a collaborative board game where you're dealing with an oil spill in the ocean, and the cool thing is the center of the board is a dice tower, and you dump the dice in, and where they go and what number they roll determines how the oil spill spreads.
That's cool.
It's really good. It's got pandemic vibes, but it's a different, it's an environmental theme. Love that. Definitely looking into getting into. I mean, it's not a new game, but getting into Cult Divinity Lost. I want to do a little bit more than that. But I mean, I really, I got a weekly gaming group, and a lot of what we do is play test our own games. So the next game in this series is one, but I'm also working on a bunch of other mini games based on the Together We Go engine. Have you heard of Down We Go?
Yes. Yeah, that's made by our friend Tony Vicinda. Yeah, friend of the show.
Right. So I'm on a Facebook group for minimalist role-playing games, and I saw his original post, Marcus Linderum's original post, and was so inspired. I immediately made a cyberpunk, and now I've made with a friend. We're making like a gothic crime and an espionage one, and so we're planning on starting a zine with Gallant Knight Games of a bunch of these Together We Go games. So I'm excited about my games coming out.
Yeah, no, that's
that
perfectly fine. And that was cool information because, Alan Barr and Tony Vicinda are both friends of the show, and they're potentially collaborating. So that's very exciting for us too. So, but yeah.
It's also funny that you say that, Jim. I just added you to the Discord where all those creators are also. There's a huge Discord that Tony Vicinda runs with a ton of indie creators and developers where people are working on, a lot of stuff in progress, with their art in progress, their games in progress, and looking for help. So I'm sure you could probably help guide a lot of people in there trying to make their games since you have officially made your first game. I'm still excited for you. One day, Jahan and I are going to make a game that I can't wait to have the feeling that you have. Your first game's coming out.
Oh, it's a real privilege.
But yeah, so thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for talking to us about your game. Hopefully you'll come back and talk to us more in the future. I've been Jahananon. I'm at RockFact on Twitter.
I'm Casualty CDG, and you can find me at Casualty CDG on all of the social medias.
And I'm Jim Davies at jimdavies.org. And if you like the sound of my voice and want to hear about how the mind works, check out Minding the Brain podcast. Won an award in 2019.
Oh, shit.
And hear all about the mind and the brain. And tell everybody you like hardcover books. Tell everybody about Things That Go Squeak in the Night. We'd love to see this Kickstarter get a ribbon.
Things That Go Squeak in the Night, live on Kickstarter now. Thank you so much for being here. Have a good day.
Have a good night.